Three jobs in 1 year because he got hired today.
They might hire. Did they hire somebody?
No, Willie Taggart's been to three different schools in 1 year.
If you're talking about hiring a Texas A&M's coach,
Yeah.
now that's a full circle.
Yes, it is.
That's
Hey, welcome to council work session Wednesday, December 6th. Open for visitor comments. Okay. Semi-annual report from Columbia County Economic Team.
I take it, Commissioner Locke, Councilor Locke's in morning.
Yes. Could you make sure your mic's on there, Chuck?
Yeah,
Sounds like it.
I can hear it. Can you hear me? Is that good? Is this broadcasting it, or is it just picking up locally and putting it on speakers, or?
It's broadcasting.
Oh,
We're live.
Okay. So I have to watch what I say. Well, don't know where you want me to start. There's a lot of stuff going on, so I guess I could start at the beginning. So I'm Chuck Daughtry. I'm with the Columbia County Economic Team, and so the first thing I want to talk, we can share some information. I don't know everything. Maybe you guys know some stuff I don't know. That'd be good. Hopefully I picked up some things on Armstrong. And so we were totally caught off guard with Armstrong's announcement of leaving. It was something we hadn't even anticipated. We've been talking with the company. We've been talking for a number of years about expansion plans. I'd even heard that there was money allocated for an expansion, and it had been approved, and they were proceeding down the road and looking at various kind of design build options. And so we had not expected that. So as soon as and it was odd the way I found out is it was it was from Libby at the PUD, who had saw postings from spouses on Facebook, which is an odd way of finding something out, and it was within a half an hour after the company had met with their employees to talk about what they were doing. So I could say a couple of things. First off, is that when I found out that they were closing, I called Senator Johnson immediately to see if there was what should we do. Really, what there's a number of responses we could have to this. And her first thought was on the employees. Is what can we do? So we contacted the state employment office, and they have a rapid response team. And so they've already been in contact with Blaine Peterson at the general manager at Armstrong, and they're working out plans for communicating what benefits are available to the employees in terms of unemployment, how to file for that, how to handle health insurance, which is a big issue when you're unemployed, and what other sort of transitional help they can provide to employees in terms of job description, resume writing, that sort of thing, and looking for opportunities in the workplace. So we're gonna that's going to be coordinated with Armstrong. My understanding is that from Blaine is they want to keep as many or a number of employees up until the very end. They're going to be operating the facility, and I've heard a date of May. I can't verify that, but I think that's what I've heard is the date that I've heard. They want to keep all their employees on board till then. And we have a meeting scheduled tomorrow with John and myself, Melanie Olson from Business Oregon. We'll have a representative from the port there, and Henry Heimiller. And like the first thing is to see if there's anything we can do or the state can do to change their mind. What exactly is triggering this? I take it at face value that there was some issues with logistics there and transportation. Seemed like they were operated a long time under the same existing logistics and transportation issues. So I don't know if there are other reasons, and if there are things we could do to help cure that. But short of that, we have a couple of things here. We have that are really valuable in terms of the transition here. We have a a good workforce there. There's a bunch of people that are really have a lot of good skills, pass a drug test, show up for work every day, good attitudes, and these are the kind of people that companies want. So that's a valuable asset for the county and for St. Helens. And the other is the site itself. And those type of industrial sites are really rare in the Portland, Vancouver area. So it all depends on what Armstrong desires to do with the property. I know from past experience, companies don't like to sell their existing facilities to competitors. So whatever goes in there, I would doubt it would be a tile manufacturer. I would have doubt that we'd be able to get a water user in there that uses as much water as they do now. So that's going to have an impact the city. I've already contacted U.S. Gypsum up in Rainier and talked to the manager about whether or not they had any need for the facility. She said no, the employees, yes. So there's at least one employer in the county that could really utilize the skill sets of the people that are there. And then Knife River has also demonstrated a desire to at least have a job fair on site for the employees through CSET. So I think after we talk to Blair, we'll get some feel for the timing of that and when we can do that. And and just personally, I wanted to say I've been through this twice in my life personally about having, a job that I thought was my career job for the rest of my life kind of jerked out from underneath me, and it's tough. And but if you look at the things that are happening with Armstrong, they gave their employees, I think, a lot of time, and that doesn't happen a lot where companies are closing up shop and they just do it they tell you on a Friday and they're closed that afternoon and you're gone. And so I think it's tough hearing the news before Christmas, but again, rather than rack up a bunch of credit card debt for Christmas, at least now maybe some families would have some time to consider. Cash is real important right now when you're between jobs. So, and it's a lot easier talking to your family about we don't have money for Christmas than it is in February and March when you really don't have any money coming in and you're paying all those Christmas bills. So I think in a couple of ways the timing of how they did this was actually pretty fair for the employees. And I know that's kind of tough to hear, but hopefully we can figure out a way to retain those people in Columbia County and then get that site up for reuse. So any questions or comments specifically about Armstrong?
Are any of their employees going to be absorbed by their larger conglomerate?
Yes, I think they'll have job opportunities available at various locations around the country for employees that they desire that they keep that have probably really specialized skill sets. Those would be either engineering or systems operations. So, and that's all to be determined. And I don't know how many people they'll keep around, and if they plan to mothball the facility for some time, I don't know what that means in terms of the maintenance of it. Are they gonna tear down structures? Are they gonna tear out equipment? What exactly are they planning to do? Hopefully, we'll have some more information on that tomorrow.
Thanks for the update.
So, that's the kind of crappy part about what we do. Do you want me to just go through my report then? I've got a bunch of stuff here we can talk about. So we had another delegation this last week go to Sheffield. So we had in England talk about OMEC. And we had one of the directors at the Columbia River PUD went, along with a counselor from City of St. Helens, a CSET board member. We also had the head of the Columbia River Economic Development District in Vancouver go. That's another potential market for new members to join OMEC. They all came back just wide-eyed and giddy. It's a tremendous opportunity there, and they see what's happened in Sheffield, and they see what we can replicate here. So we are working with the Japanese tool company OSG. Enterprise zone applications pending, as well as an application for the Oregon Investment Advantage. They are talking about building a 20 to 30,000 square foot building initially with up to 15 employees, and they'll be manufacturing bits for cutting tools for the machinery that's going to be in the OMEC facility, as well as machinery that Boeing uses. The PCC training facility, we have the issue with PCC has been that we have not been able to really deliver a buildable site of a scope and a scale in Scappoose. We're close, and we think that's going to happen relatively quickly. But you know, they have looked at alternative sites, and they've put up a temporary facility in Scappoose High School. And we're hopeful that the site that they really need to locate on is east of the airport. It is there's some state funding that is dedicated for that site. So hopefully that's, you know, the decision will soon we'll be able to deliver a site, and they can become kind of the anchor tenant for the rest of the OMEC facility out there. So the R&D has been my big focus. I haven't really done much in terms of the training function, except tried to stay plugged into PCC's decision. But on the R&D side, they're moving ahead rapidly. They're issuing contracts. Oregon Tech is issuing contracts to do some interior work to the facility that will allow it to be able to operate. There's a number of things the John Jersey building is fabulous, but it was built as a truck overhaul facility, not for an R&D facility. So there's a number of things that have to happen to that building to really get it operational. And so there's some contracts issued for floor reinforcement. I think they're looking at the temperature control within the building. It's got a lot of bay doors in it. It needs to be retrofitted. So all that's moving ahead. We're anticipating in the spring that we'll have a fairly large machine in there donated by Mitsubishi that they can use for projects. And the first project they're going to work on is how to drill a better hole, which seems pretty basic, but I worked in a machine shop for quite a few years. And you cut a pilot hole, you cut a boring hole, and then you cut the specification size. So it's a lot of steps. And what they want to do is make one drill bit, cuts the hole within tolerances, specifications in one pass. Saves a lot of money, makes it quicker, and they're going to spend an awful lot of time drilling in a lot of holes, testing out new drill bits and new equipment to see if they can do that. So that's really the heart of why the R&D facility is so valuable. And if you think about even the manufacture of a carburetor, and you drill down to it and you see the thousands of parts that it entails, and you get down to one little valve that it operates, it's difficult to machine and operate in malfunctions. That's where the R&D research can really pay off by producing that component of that product in a faster, cheaper, stronger way, greener. Then that's the hope and really what the value of the R&D is. So on your agenda, you've got an application for extended enterprise zone benefits. I have a correction. Did I give this to you, Kathy? So there was an error in the description of the company, and we changed it. It's in the whereases. It's a specialty medical transportation and aircraft maintenance.
So you said a St. Helens counselor went to Sheffield. I think that was Scappoose, probably.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I'm not sorry.
Seen all of us.
I would think
wondering who it was.
I would
Like,
think
who-
I would think it would benefit. Honestly, I think for the St. Helens City Council, if we could set up another trip to send a representative to Sheffield as well, because the benefits of that are going to be not just restricted to Scappoose.
Oh, right.
It's gonna go through the whole region.
I have a question on the PCC site. You know, I mean, I was there at the Leadership Summit last year, and there everybody was up there, and weren't they supposed to be breaking ground in the fall of 2018 originally?
Yeah, there's, I mean, they've made pledges about that and all. And I'd say,
I mean,
It-
we have been promised a school
Sure.
for a long, long time. A long time. We've been paying taxes.
20 years or more.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, so, yeah, and I can't speak for
Sure.
PCC.
But what seems to be the hangup?
I
Because
don't
it seems
think-
like there's an oversight there.
Well, I don't think that the issues with the site development have been, we were able to deliver a site to them that they could build on within the time frame that they wanted. And so we're, that's what needs to be cured. And I think that's, once that happens, then I think PCC would proceed with their investment.
Was it a zoning issue or a prep site
I
issue?
can't really get into the details about the site, the specific site stuff, but,
All I can speak on is history, is that we have been paying for a long time, and that's probably why Columbia County didn't pass here, even though it passed.
right.
Is because we've been promised that forever, and we've always had just little classrooms in our high schools. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I heard Senator Johnson pretty loud and clear at our county city port meeting on it, and I know her feelings. I think, Portland Community College is a member of CSET. They support our organization. We work closely with them. I think it's important that they build a branch here and they come in. The potential is that we go from really not having any higher educational representation within the county to suddenly we have not only Portland Community College, but we have Oregon Tech and Oregon State University and Portland State University all having branches, all offering really advanced curricula that'll draw, not only would benefit the kids here in the schools, but also will draw students into the county. So,
We have land available, just saying.
yes. And I don't think I really want to get into that
I know.
discussion in terms of the location of the site. It's, I know that it's been frustrating for the community, I know, so.
Well, originally, the unique part of this whole thing was everything would be in one site. Am I correct? I mean, that was part of the OMEC, was you could bounce around from section to section.
Yeah, I think when we went to Sheffield and we looked at the AMRC, and we saw that there really wasn't as closely bonded a connection between the University of Sheffield and the R&D facility. Now, they work well, but they're not necessarily tied to the hip. And so we saw that as maybe an opportunity in Scappoose, that we could join these up, marry these two functions right from the start. And so we're still working through that, and it's a lot of growing pains, but I think we're getting closer.
Okay, thank you.
I noticed that I think we're in zone 4 for the PCC Board of Directors. And like any other board, that's where all the decisions are
Yep.
made.
Yep.
And has very strong representation out of St. Helens is involved in, and as well as Sylvia Island and the county in Northwest Portland. And I think there's some strong representation, a very strong board member out of Northwest Portland. So I see that as as kind of our dilemma. When is someone going to step up from this community and from Columbia County to run for that board position? We have one person has tried 4 or 5 years ago, I do believe, and was hardly got any votes at all. Got votes from Columbia County, but not out of Portland.
You can run on taxation without representation.
Yeah, exactly. So it's one of those. It's one of those board representational issues that I think that we need to be aware of. And Boy, if you know anyone who wants to step up to the plate and run, Chuck?
No.
Well, I'd have to agree with you, Doug, and I think for our citizens out there, if they really hear us and are watching and they feel eager to write a letter to the PCC Board of Directors, because that's where all the decisions are made, feel free to. I encourage you to. I implore you to do that, and let's make this happen sooner than later.
The recent bond passed, but not in Columbia
Yes.
County. And that's been a traditional response. People are,
So we
Right,
had,
yeah.
we had an extended discussion about this at our CSET Executive Committee meeting yesterday, and as to how to approach this. And I don't know if we actually resolved it, but there was a lot of commonality about some additional patience right now in terms of the site selection, with knowing that at some point that patience is going to be completely gone. And but as for now, the hope is that the issues with the land development get resolved quickly, sometime early this coming year, and that PCC is able to move forward with a decision, make the investment, and start constructing the campus. But I think it's important. I think the PCC part of it's important for the county, obviously.
Yes.
I think the R&D portion of it, in my mind, is the key, and even more so than the training function. And to have that Boeing connection and the Boeing support of that is just invaluable. And that's been my primary.
We're gonna have to get a better stand for that, because that happens all the time. Good.
I thought it was me. It's no fun. It fell right over. My focus has been on the R&D side, because that's the unique piece of this. Really, if you take that out, PCC could open a campus. They could have a training facility. I think it would be far less effective than it would be if it's tied to the R&D facility at OMEC, and we're able to leverage the apprenticeship programs that the state offers with the companies that are going to be joining OMEC. So maybe that's requiring us to be a little more patient now than I think, than it's warranted even. But that's the hope. That's the hope.
I think OMEC's an amazing opportunity, but it's really hard to counsel patience when we've been being patient for a very long time.
Yes, and keep us posted. I think we maybe need to rally the troops and go into the board and, grab some city officials from each city. How far out does PCC reach in Columbia County?
I
Is
think
it all
Deer
there?
Island.
Rainier,
Rainier?
Does it go to Rainier?
Goes to
Yeah.
Rainier.
Vernonia.
I didn't think it went to Rainier.
Yeah,
I mean,
doesn't go to
if
Clatsville.
it was
Just
a-
almost to Rainier.
If it was a help for us to show up, we have been paying for a long time, and it needs to be noted. If anything, we'll show up just to state that. So keep us posted on that, okay?
It might be good to invite, Sandra Fowler Hill is leaving. I don't remember the date, but she's been the president of the Rock Creek campus. It might be good to extend an invitation to her to come and talk to the city council. So,
I
or
would
her
love to
replacement.
hear more information about OMEC. You're our primary source of information about it. We really don't. It's going to have regional impact, and we really kind of feel left out, I think. Because it's going to impact us, and we need to know the ways it's going to impact us so we can prepare.
So, okay, Premier Jets, it's okay to move on?
Yes, it is.
So they've purchased some land from the port off of Wagner Court in Scappoose, and they've got an enterprise zone application pending. It's $4.6 million facility, 17 full-time jobs, averaging 56,000 a year, and they're talking about a 20,000 square foot building, and they're a chartered jet service, same-day cargo delivery for hazmat transport, organs for transplanting, really specialized work.
Mhm.
There's a type of thing that you really don't want to have to access their services, but if you need them, you're glad they're there.
Yep.
So We've been working with the owner of the Callaway building, and this was something I didn't know very much about at all, that the building next to the jail, Callaway's been operating in there for quite some time as a rebaling hay, and they're looking at potentially selling the building, and so they're looking at different buyers and different businesses. So we've been meeting with some of the business owners and the realtors and looking at the site and figuring out how we can best repurpose it. Margaret, Commissioner Magruder, and I went to Riddle, Oregon, and toured the D.R. Johnson cross-laminated timber plant down there. They're the only plant that operates in the United States. There's another one, I think, in Canada. And really, it's a new technology, and it's a way to build multi-story buildings almost entirely from wood. And they're really going through a process. Right now, they operate as a job shop. A lot of the laminated timber beams that they prepare are really architectural in design, but they do have some other characteristics that make the wood incredibly strong, incredibly able to withstand earthquakes, and they're making them fireproof to extent at least fire retardant enough that they could last through the evacuation of a multi-story building. So the technology is coming along. D.R. Johnson, Valerie Johnson's the owner. She's investing a lot of money in upgrading the facilities with new equipment and all. And so we've been working with the Clackamas County, set this trip up, and we kind of glommed onto it to go down to Riddle. They had chartered a bus for us, and we went down there and looked at the facility and trying to figure out what niche we could potentially fill here. And right now it looks like the need is for a company that can operate a kiln dry, that can get the wood to a low enough percentage of water content that would allow the product to be made across laminated timber beams. They require less water. I mean, you have to dry the wood out considerably more than you do for regular plywood. So that may be the project. And I just want to talk a little bit about Columbia County. And so, I mean, it's pretty obvious that one of our big resources here is timber. And in 2015, we were talking with CSEP. We met with Columbia Forest Products. And this was right after the tsunami had hit Japan. And they were looking at the potential of building a plywood mill in the United States that could manufacture plywood to Japanese specifications. And so they actually were talking about making a kind of a sandwich plywood using cottonwood from Boardman and Douglas fir from Columbia County, and then manufacturing that and shipping it out of the Teven Brothers dock overseas. So we got pretty far down the road with that, and then the Columbia Forest Products was pulled out of the project. So, and the Japanese that were supporting it did. So it just didn't happen. But one of the things that did happen out of that was we had a company called Mason, Bruce, and Girard, and they did a timber analysis for CSET, and we got a copy. They didn't do it for us, but we ended up with a copy of it. And basically, it was they looked at a log supply within 100 square miles of Clatskanie. So it takes you all the way up to South Puget Sound, over to Shalachie Prairie up in Clark County, out to Hood River, Albany, the North Oregon coast, with the hub being right there in Clatskanie. And they looked at timber ownership, the harvest, and what mills were running, what logs were being exported. So the results of this study were that they determined that there's 7.7 million acres of private and public timberlands within that area, and that we have 151 billion board feet of timber inventory. So there's a significant forest there, and a lot of it's privately owned. The current harvest, so if you look at there's 151 billion board feet, we're only harvesting between 3.2 and 3.5 billion board feet. I don't think this has changed very much since 2015. So it's 2.2% of the inventory. What the industry uses as a kind of a rule of thumb is that 4% is about the maximum in terms of sustainable yield. So if you're cutting down more than 4% of your forest every year, you're not going to be able to replenish it at the same rate you're cutting it. So if we're only doing 2% and 4% is the sustainable, we're using about half of the potential yield that is there. So obviously we've got to, rather than just export logs, we need to find some other use for those logs. That's why we're looking at cross-laminated timber as a potential source of use of wood. And the more we're finding out about it, it's difficult to create a market. There's a lot of momentum for cross-laminated timber. So we're hopeful that we can get in to be part of that and maybe get a mill established here, start with maybe getting a kiln in here. So we're working with Clatsop County, working with Clackamas County, and we're just kind of right at the start of this process, but we'll be sniffing around and see if something kind of drops out that allows us to be able to reutilize some of the industrial capacity here to be able to get a mill. And we have a mill operator in Clatskanie now that does still an operation, makes specialized wood. So there's some opportunities here for us. So that's one of the things that's on our list. I wanted to. So John and I met last week, and I talked about the St. Helens industrial site. And there's been some forward progress in terms of the visioning of the site, and what we kind of talked about was, could we look at what portion of that property we're going to use for industrial development. And then John had shared that there's been some progress made and maybe looking at getting the site prepped for development. I would strongly encourage that. I think that's a great idea. The better that property would show, if we can grub it and get it rocked to some extent, get it level, get the elevations right, have it so that it shows well. It's a really good industrial property, and have some idea about what kind of industries you would allow in there. That would be good, so we'd know how to market the site. So I'm all encouraging of that. I think that's a great idea. When I first came to Columbia County, the old Boise site was the most, we had more inquiries about that than any other piece of property in the county. And so I think now that you've got more clear vision about what you're going to do with how you're going to carve up that big site, I would just strongly encourage let's get it marketed. Let's get out there and see what we can do with that. So, John, anything to add to that? Gloss that over maybe a little bit. Yeah, so we're working on some other issues in Rainier that relate to Rockcrest Street, and we're trying to see if we can get some funding for that. That whole intersection's failed up there. It's a really difficult place to drive around in for a small town, and so hopefully we can get some funding for that to help the businesses that are out there. I talk a little bit about the CSET, and I wanted to give you, I don't necessarily need a decision, but I wanted to give you this is our budget for the
Yep.
for the Columbia County Business Association. So So I've been working with Keep It Local Columbia County now for 2 years. And Susan's been active in this committee as well. And it's really started out as a voluntary organization. We had people that were trying to figure out how we could best increase the economic activity, the retail and commercial activity, which is really not part of CSET's charter. But when I first got here, I ran some statistics on per capita population and sales within the county. So based on the number of people that live in the county, we ought to have about $600 million a year in retail and commercial sales, just strictly on the number of people here and the averages. And we've been averaging about 400 million, not 600. So there's $200 million of sales that leak out of the county. And that's really because of the number of people that travel and work other places and take their dollars with and go other places. But the impact is that there's less money for taxes, there's $200 million worth of businesses that aren't here. There's businesses that could be more successful if we could capture some of that funds. So that was the whole idea behind Keep It Local Columbia County, was how do we do that, first off, is in one way is create jobs for people that work here. Another thing is to educate the community about shopping local, about what the benefits are on when you purchase something locally versus spending your money in other locations. And so we started to Keep It Local as a campaign, and one of the things we identified right away is when we're telling people to shop local, what does that mean? Where are we telling them to shop specifically? So what's a local business? So we went through some discussion of that, and now we've got, with the help of the PUD, Libby at the PUD, we've been able to create a website. We're out recruiting like crazy. We've got staffing. Natasha Parvey has been working with us. So to get this, we were initially working with Shedco, and they were a great partner, and we were using Shedco essentially as a fiscal agent, and we thought we needed to step up and really have our own separate organization with this. So with some discussion with the volunteers, we decided that we would create a separate 501c3 tax-exempt organization, IRS tax-exempt organization, that would allow monies to come into CSET as a separate vehicle, which is the Columbia County Business Association. So what I gave you was a copy of our budget that was approved yesterday, as well as the financial statement on the back side for the first year. So CSET has earmarked $17,000 from our budget to help support this effort. And money goes to support Natasha's program, as well as other things that we're doing in terms of communication and materials and that sort of thing. And so we've been looking, there's a line in here that says city donations, and that's not just the city of St. Helens. But there was, I think when we put the budget together, there was an expectation that there might be some additional support at some time, some amount for this effort. So I'm not asking for approval of any disbursements. I know the budget's a tough thing, and I don't know if we're in the budget. I'm not sure exactly, but you know, we have had. I know this in the past. We've had donations from various municipalities within the county, and we're hopeful that maybe there can be a little money. Doesn't have to be a lot. Doesn't have to be the entire $2,500. If we get just a portion of that, I'm sure we can get support from Scappoose and Columbia City, as we have in the past, as well as Vernier and Clatskanie. Vernonia is a little tougher pull. But so talk about then a couple of things that we're doing related kind of to this, and it's a little bit different, but it's all kind of related. Last year, Mayor Burge and Scappoose had identified that there was funding that was being made available through Travel Oregon, through Travel Portland, for regional tourism, and it was being divided up among counties and cities, and we weren't getting anything of that. Now, you guys have put an application in for a large grant for your entry project, but there was additional money out there for planning and staffing and other things. And so when we met with Travel Portland, they were interested in not just supporting a specific chamber, but some sort of county-wide organization. And there really wasn't anything on a tourism basis. CSET was the closest, so because we operate all over the county. So what we were able to do is we put an application in, and we were able to secure $50,000 in funding for tourism. And we have a couple of objectives here. And the first thing is that and this is over a 2-year period, we want to create a Columbia County tourism destination marketing plan. Columbia County ranks last in terms of per capita tourism dollars of all the counties in Oregon. I have no idea why that is, but it's easy because it's the lowest. How low we can't go any lower. So it seems like there's some really low-hanging fruit there, and it ties into Keep It Local Columbia County and helps us market our businesses. So there's a couple of things we need to do with that is we need to create an asset map of all the tourism attractions within Columbia County. That's the first step. And we've got, just some cursory things together, but it needs to be more refined. Then the next step is to create a countywide tourism committee. And I think there absolutely has to be a representative from St. Helens or two, being the largest city in the county, to help us really kind of pull together either a visitors association or something related. And we're working with the chambers. All the 4 chambers within the county are going to be part of this, and then we'll hopefully be able to have a staff position funded that can really kind of hold, because that's the key, is getting the labor, getting somebody focused on this and attention. So so as a tangent to this and related to this, the Washington County Visitors Association has put an application grant in for tourism dollars related to trails in the area. So what we were able to do was meet with them and get them to focus initially on the Banks-Vernonia Trail. And that does a couple of things for me. It gives me a wonderful project to work on in Vernonia. And I think it's kind of low-hanging fruit because there's an awful lot of momentum for that. And it ties into the Crown-Zellerback Trail. So it really, as we advance, it brings us into the county a little bit more. So, and there's really no money out of our pockets to do this. This is all coming from the Washington County Visitors Association. So I've been attending those meetings along with Scott Burge and Natasha Parvey, and I think our first step is to do a tour of the trail to see what issues there are up there. We've already talked to Josette Mitchell up in Vernonia about what she thought the community needed, and there may be some improvements that need to be done to that trail to make it a little more accessible. She hears a consistent complaint from people that use the trail about a section of it that needs to be redeveloped. So, so that's kind of related to Keep It Local Columbia County. It's a little bit different, but we are expanding what we do in terms of just not strictly industrial economic development. We're looking at also what can we do for economic growth for retail, tourism, and commercial. So let's see. So Friday there's a city administrators meeting in Clatskanie. And one of the things that I'd suggested recently was that we kind of redo how we model our economic development input from the cities, from the communities. And so Scappoose has been incredibly successful in my mind in how they've been able to engage the community as well as CSET and the city working in cooperation on their Economic Development Committee. So I thought it would be good if we had Mike Sykes come in and talk to all the city managers about what was going on within the different communities concerning economic development, and maybe accelerate that pace with maybe a little different form of communication and organization. And I know it's unique to every city, but I thought that would be kind of a good start, is to let's see what's successful and see what we've been doing and see how we can improve it. So, that'll be the first of hopefully other discussions. There's a lot of other stuff. So I did go to a meeting with GPI, Greater Portland Inc., and Metro about regional lands inventory, industrial lands inventory within region, and Portland area is really almost flat out of land. I mean, when you look at the available sites, they're all around the periphery of Metro. Hardly anything exists in the middle anymore. So our industrial land base is really going to be critical for the growth of the Portland metropolitan area. So I think the opportunities are there, and the more land that we can have shovel-ready, ready to go, and developable, fully served, with good access, we're going to be just ripe for industrial development. So that's kind of all I've got, so.
Well, along with industrial development, you certainly need some upgrades in transportation. Because some of the reasons that I heard from Armstrong wanting to go is that it just came from your mouth, that basically transporting the products is problematic. They're not in the hub.
Right.
And that's a big problem. I know Betsy is working diligently on that with the oversight of her transportation issues in the legislature. So, there are some hurdles with that.
So this morning, there was a small truck that had braked in front of a gravel truck, just east side of Sauvie Island Road.
Yeah, Newberry Road.
Traffic backed up all the way past Cornelius Pass, not moving at all. And just one little accident. So, yeah, there's obviously some things that need to be resolved. The whole Portland metropolitan area, traffic is failing, though. It's not just
We've got
here.
2 issues, though. We've got that area. And Scappoose sometimes is very hard to come through. I've actually stopped at the first stoplight and been 20 minutes because you waited at least 2-3 cycles through that first light because it's backed up that far. 20 minutes to get through Scappoose. That is
Yeah, we don't need another Dundee.
2 miles,
Yeah, Dundee,
3-mile stretch.
Dundee, I think they're still working on the solution there.
And
you know.
then the Longview Bridge,
Yeah.
literally you can go up the hill and come back the opposite way to go over the bridge quicker than most people are doing that. And it's very crazy because people are doing it erratically up there at the top of the hill. So on keep it local Columbia County, or keep it local.
Yep.
What about teaching businesses about marketing?
Yeah.
Because that's the whole problem with our area, and we know it. We're aware of it.
So there was
Teach
a
them how to get on to the computer.
there
and-
was a survey done as part of the initial creation of this, and we I think we had 30 businesses within the county, which is a small number, but it was everyone that had returned a comment, and there were a couple of things that they listed as issues, and one of them was financial bookkeeping sort of issues. How can we, get to where we can manage our money? And the other one was marketing on social media.
Yes.
And so there have been some classes that they've done through LaTip on that, and I know that there's been some effort there to meet with
The
businesses.
tip, though, is kind of one of each specific company.
Well, but they had
Basically,
They had
That's what it is.
classes, though, I know
Okay.
that, so it was, but you're right, that's,
Yes.
and then some of the businesses that had, I know there's been some increase in that, but yeah, you've gotta understand that people make their purchases a lot now on their telephones, and they look at Yelp, they look at Urban Spoon, and they try to figure out where they're gonna have dinner that night, and it's not only people just traveling through the area, it's people that live here.
Yep.
So how do you get on there? How do you monitor that? Where are you supposed to be? Is it on Google? Is it where?
I mean, the roof is taken off because they'll post, they'll put their sign on even just Facebook, and then people go down, and then you read the comments, and you're like, well, I need to go try that. A lot of people don't know this area, and then once they discover it, they're like, what a gem. What a gem. I never knew. I've lived here for 2.5 years. Never knew.
Well, that's a great point.
I have a question about transportation. I mean, we hear a lot about rail. How many of our local industries here in Columbia County use rail,
Well,
aside from the North County? We know they do.
so talk about rail kind of just in general. So it's really expensive to add it as a resource to a facility, to a
Mark.
site. And companies don't typically like to pay for it, and it's not, it's speculative. But if you don't have it and they need it, you're not gonna compete.
Yeah.
And so it's important to kind of preserve the sites that have rail connections to them.
Right, but my question is, how many of the existing companies use rail
Well, obviously, we have the Teven Brothers.
instead of trucking?
Yeah, Teven Brothers and Global, and
Mhm.
there's a few. There's not,
This end of the county, like
Um,
Armstrong, like
well.
other industries here, or small, even
so-
small companies.
Well, we had thought initially that that was going to be a big factor in what Cascades did, and it wasn't. They go to another facility to do, take it off a truck and put it on a train.
Mhm.
So, yeah, there's not a lot of companies that use the rail, but it's important.
And it's an expense issue, or it's an access issue?
So a lot of it has to do with well, the companies don't want to put the product on it and have it sit on a rail car for an extended period of time. The truck gets it out of the factory to a market quickly.
So it's a
And
process, a
they're more
procedure.
interested. Yeah, they're more interested in getting their product to market faster than they are reducing the cost of transportation by using rail, in general. So it depends upon the type of commodity you're talking about too. If it's a high value commodity that has a limited shelf life, then obviously they're going to try to get it there as quick as they can. If it's a if it's a high density, low volume, low margin sort of product, aggregate oil, then those things can be moved by train. It's just that it's whatever the economics are of the business that's operating that makes that decision. But you need to have the capability. That's, I think, the important part of it is that if the capability doesn't exist, then you don't have the ability to compete with those companies that are looking for rail.
No, I agree in the value. I'm just surprised it's not more utilized,
Expensive.
better utilized. But that seems like something that could be addressed.
Well, I know the railroad is constantly marketing to companies. So that was important. We had the MSG plant that we were looking at next to Dyna Nobel that didn't come through. We got pretty far down the road with them. They were the only reason they were looking for us is we had a rail spur in there. I mean, that was really one of the things. They ended up taking a site in Forest Grove that had another rail spur. So that was part of the criteria. Business Oregon sends out requests for proposals, at least a couple a month. And if they tick off rail, then we look at those sites that have rail and we put some proposals in for those too. So,
Chuck, I have one question, and you could hopefully comment on. When I look at the CCBA balance sheet and revenues and that kind of thing, and there's a transfer from Shedco account.
Yeah.
We're talking about we've got organizations that seemingly doing the same thing. How does CCBA in its mission differ from Shedco?
well, we're county-wide. I mean, that's the first thing. Our jurisdiction is much broader than just what Shedco does. And I'm not quite sure in terms of Shedco's focus. I went to a few meetings initially. They seem to be really just more central in terms of just microeconomic development within a particular part of St. Helens. I don't know if they extend to the whole city. I'm not quite sure. I don't know exactly what they seem to have a broad mission. This is really focused. This is focused on making sure that we try to generate revenues locally. So our whole purpose and mission is to identify those businesses that can be classified as local, try to drive customers to those businesses, and work with training the businesses in terms of the skill sets that are needed to be able to engage the employees.
And are you is the CCBA more similar than to the chamber in
Well,
mission?
that's a great question. I think there's maybe a little overlap, but the successful chambers are the ones that really focus on the needs of their members. And a lot of that has to do with lobbying and reacting to laws and regulations and rules. You know, it's not the type of thing we're covering. And some chambers do more events and event planning, and they do that sort of thing. But the chambers I've seen that are very successful are the ones that focus specifically on providing, lobbying efforts and making sure that the legislature is not putting things in place that harm businesses.
CCBA
That's completely different than what we do.
CCBA doesn't just intend to be interactive with the businesses, it actually is very interactive with the businesses in inquiring about their needs and trying to help market them and help meet their needs.
And I think, and again, it comes back to marketing, you know, 'cause I heard you, and that's what I clearly see is a marketing issue in our area. And that's a lot of money to be leaving on the table. 200 million?
Yeah.
That's a lot of money. If those projections are right, that's no bueno for Columbia County.
If you look around the table at the volunteers for Keep It Local, they are business owners that are actively working for their business community.
Yeah, a lot of them are chamber
I'm
members.
not questioning that. I'm questioning
Yeah.
maybe reaching out and doing some type of marketing.
No, I mean, they're trying to help themselves and their peers. It's very interactive.
So we've been trying to market, keep it local, but it's been on a real guerrilla basis. I mean, it's real basic things. We're painting rocks and leaving them in places in the county with Keep It Local Columbia County on them. And that was actually a pretty successful campaign, but it's very basic. We had a billboard. It was donated to us, so we've had some stickers made. Pacific Stainless, Jeff Kemp had put some money in so we could get some Keep It Local door stickers together. So, right, the key thing we saw, the thing that we found out that really makes these successful is staffing, is you have to have people working it, and that's where we have volunteers. And with Natasha and her amount, I think her budget's in here in terms of what we pay her. That's she's the reason it's really working, because we have the resource, we have the person that's focused, and all I'm doing is supplying some organizational stuff.
Sure.
Get out of her way.
And I know I'm going to continue to beat this down, but same with tourism is marketing. I look back here at Jenny Dismo, and I get the history of the administration before me, and she was a key part of marketing for our tourism and our businesses way back when she came to us through what program was that, John? Yeah,
Rare?
yeah,
Main
the
Street.
Main Street program.
Yeah.
And they did the videos and whatnot, and they were huge. I mean, it was, we're continuing to do that. So we're kind of doing some things right. I think people are recognizing that too. And we're definitely trying to, we are 1/4 of Columbia County. I would love to meet with other cities about marketing, getting businesses into this area. Absolutely. I'm all for that. So you can count me in on that. So marketing, that's again what I got to say.
So any other questions or comments? So, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chuck. Okay, discussion regarding parks. Sean?
Okay, so we've put this item on the agenda. Talking parks is kind of moving the conversation of parks funding and some of the things we've been talking about, but I really wanted to kind of press a pause on that for a moment, and we're taking parks from this survival mode to something that hopefully might be fighting for its life to manage and take care of parks, to something that might be thriving at some point, where we have a robust program that has a program of parks and activities that's well coordinated and well staffed, and has real positive outcomes there. Community as far as livability and things of that nature, sense of community, and a lot of things you find some good example cities out there to pattern after. Last week, Scott Stockwell, Matt Brown, and Councillor Khan, I met with the school district and the city met representatives to talk about a collaboration of resources, mostly. The general overframe being the school has all these facilities that are underutilized at off hours and during the summers and things. There's a lot of capacity to build programs. City, you have the ability to organize and promote things. How can we work together to do things better, or to build a program? And it was a really good conversation. I don't know if Councillor Connor or Matt Brown want to chime in on their thoughts about it, but it seems like it has a lot of opportunity to do really good things for our community. And one of the initial thoughts we had was under this vein of starting small, getting something going, because we really don't have a Parks and Recs program to speak of, and the city doesn't run one, and neither does anybody else. There's a number of clubs and one-offs that are doing their businesses, and that's all good and all, but there's nothing that comes together and coordinates all of those activities in one spot which would create a lot of efficiency for a person wanting to access those services. The library offers numerous programs that we do a decent job of marketing through social media and things and have good attendance, but I think it could be even better if it was under a more global program. So we wanted to share that meeting, the thoughts of that meeting. I think it has possibilities to go and to go somewhere. Developing the resources. We've been discussing internally is having maybe reallocating some staff around to have somebody internally kind of work on the beginnings of a plan. Maybe not even a part-time effort, just a few days a week and on time. But it's not Kathy. She's looking at me. It's not Lisa either. But
I know I was excited by our conversation
Yeah.
because it meets so many of our council goals,
It really
and so many of our goals are in line with the school district's goals. It makes a better community.
Absolutely. It does.
I think there's a history of either lack of communication of the school or kind of at odds with the ball fields and the reservations and things, at least at the top. That's my sense of it, and I think that being the administration, school administration, pushing down and saying that you guys shall work together might create a lot of opportunities that may not exist otherwise.
We have a lot of assets that we can both benefit by collaborating. We can improve our community, improve the lives of the students and the adults in the community, and we have the organizational skills to pull it off.
Yeah, it's just not just youth programs, be adult
No,
programs.
right. So we're talking about piloting something like that.
We talked about the relationship with the Greater St. Helens Park and Rec District and the pool, how that might fit into the mix of things too. But I think initially it's just a willingness to work cooperatively to try to develop the framework for a program.
Look at it.
And not really going much beyond that as far as finding maybe a little bit of resources internally to make that happen and some partnerships with the school district to that end, but more to value improving Park and Recs, I think, is the ask here.
For years, I brought in a quarterly report from Sandy Parks and Rec, where they would have quilting, fly tying, water rafting trips, all kinds of things, agricultural kinds of components, which we have as well here in this community with CHIP and the extension of it. So many activities all wrapped up into Parks and Rec. Sarah Richardson heads up that program in the city of Sandy, and it's amazing. It's all online now, but I remember bringing that in as an examples of where we could go, and this was maybe maybe up to 6 years, 7 years ago, continually bringing those quarterly reports in of seeing what Sandy is doing. Is there any way that we can integrate this? And there are so many things that happened. The recession hit about that time, so many other kinds of activities, or so many other issues that we had to deal with, and then the budget went bad. And so that kind of died on my doorstep, in a sense. I'm really glad to see that you guys picked that up and are going with it and giving a report on it. I can't think of a better program to look at and to model as is what Sandy, the small city of Sandy has done with their recs. They're all inclusive with recreational kinds of things. They work with credits, giving high school kids additional credits, PE credits for working or attending some of their activities. So I just see that as that's really on the right track as far as I'm concerned. I'd really like to see the parks, our park system, develop into something like a true Parks and Rec development. That's great. I'm just glad that you're talking now finally or we finally got into the educational arena with did you talk to school board or the
Yeah.
superintendent or what?
School board supportive. We talked to the superintendent, and a couple of board members were there.
So there's obviously some circle backs with commissions and some things here, but this is just kind of, just last week, a conversation we had that seems to have some possibilities. And
But there are a lot of points of
It's
our
in the very beginning stages.
And how many people would like to go out who've never gone out salmon fishing and know how to bait a hook or what kind of bait's being used or those kinds of activities for kids?
Yep.
The same thing with sailing and those kinds of recreational activities on the water. This place is a mecca for that. And we can also check into Hood River with their Parks and Rec department as well, as they facilitate some of those activities on the river with their Parks and Rec. It's
That's
we
funny.
have it all. We have that here.
That's funny because I was just talking to Julie about salmon fishing, and I told her I'd have to maybe invite her and Nicole, our other reporter, out for a salmon trip one time, just so they could report on what we actually do out there.
Exactly.
And I think it would be hugely successful, give people a chance to mentor kids, to find those kids that mom and dad maybe are struggling, who don't have the time to spend with the kids, a little extra time, and they're more successful. They will be more successful both in school and in the future. It's a win-win for our community all the way around.
Well, and we've lost so many of the organizations and the financial support that allowed us to have the after-school programs like that.
I will say that Portland Public Schools would not have an athletic program if it wasn't for Portland Parks, because those two work hand in hand with all their facilities. The gyms are being utilized in the evening time for recreational kinds of activities. The baseball fields are on a city park. Tennis courts are in the city parks usually, rather than on school district property. So it's a reciprocal kind of thing in other cities. The models are there. It's just a matter of looking at it and seeing what fits in our community and how it can function.
Well, we now have the opportunity to
Good.
explore that.
It's very preliminary right now, but yeah, I think everybody's had the same response.
Exactly.
Yep.
Way to
The minute I heard it,
jumpstart
I was
it.
like, yeah, let's do this.
So if you guys support it, and we support it,
looks like a
that
nod,
helps.
so.
And it's this way from the school board too.
Mhm.
They're feeling the same way we are.
Yeah.
Yep. We will.
Carry forth with that.
Mhm.
Good, thanks.
Okay, it's still you, John. Review urban renewal agency bylaws.
Okay,
I better get a cup of coffee for this.
this is gonna be really exciting. Passing off the bylaws that were in the packet there for something to hold in your hand while we walk through this.
I drank it, it's all done.
So in your hand, or coming shortly into your hand, is the draft, a set of draft bylaws for the Urban Renewal Agency. And this is the council, still some more legwork yet to do on the formation of the Urban Renewal Agency. Or the Urban Renewal Agency has been formed since 2008, but that's as far as it ever got. But now that we have a plan adopted and are set to collect some increment and become a little more relevant towards economic development, we start meeting regularly and have a set of bylaws, so on how to operate. So what this represents is and it's marked very draft because it has some decision points and still has to go through a round of legal review yet, but we modeled after a few other communities that are that have these agencies that are relatively new, and picked out the spots that we thought would be relevant to the city. I'd like to go through that. There's I don't know that I need to read the whole thing, but there's the Article 1's authority. And we've already established that through our ordinance, creating the agency. So under Article 2, the board members, the agency membership is composed of the 5 members of the city council. That's been from 2008. There's some discussion about adding advisory committees or to that at some point, but I don't know that it needs to be part of the charter or the bylaws here, that we can plug that in at any time.
That addresses committees, though. It later on in your report.
Yeah, it does. The terms are the same as the city council. They also serve as a local contract review board, which is already, and it differs, so we don't recreate a whole nother code for the agency because it is a separate unit of government. It refers back to the council's or the city's adopted rules by reference. So the officers, there's a couple different ways to do this. There's the officers of the agency shall be a chair and a vice chair. And we've listed, and this is handled differently in different communities. In some agencies, the mayor and the council president are by default the chair and vice chair of the agency. And others, they're elected among themselves. Just at the first of every year, they appoint a chair and a vice chair, much like the planning commission or something like that, or a number of our committees. So that's a discussion point we'd hope to have. And if there is, if it's going to be elected among the members, and there's some additional angle decision making, will come after that. So as far as Section 5, which is the procedures there. So, oh no, electioner appointment. Okay. So do we want to pause there and talk about that, or you want to?
Well, we're gonna have to do something in January, it looks like, right?
So it'd either be by default of the council, or the mayor and the council president would automatically become chair and vice chair, or it would be, and I recognize we don't have a full council today, elected among the agency members.
I certainly am more impressed with option 2 because it follows our guidelines of how we deal with our committees in a city. So what we have with our committees and commissions is that it changes from year to year of its leadership. I think from from my perspective, that's a much healthier way to approach it. Some people can get burned out at the leadership position of chair or vice chair, and other people would be very eager to step up and take those kinds of positions, that kind of leadership role. So I'm a strong advocate of of option 2, rather than having a mayor and the vice president of the council, or the president of the council, be the head of it in the vice chair. That's just my
I
observation.
And we kind of tabletop this a little bit about possible scenarios, and I mean, just because you're in one position doesn't make the chair, chair of another may not be the most appropriate. If you had somebody that came on the council that had very rich and robust development experience, and
You'd want him as the chair.
you'd probably want them as the chair. And,
Yeah,
No brainer there.
yeah, good
It's,
point.
So, so if that's the case, then if number 2 is preferred, then we just do that at the beginning. The first meeting, just like we do at the Planning Commission, first meeting of the year, they do that election. There's a process for removals and vacancies, and much like you'll see in our, council rules and charter and things, but personnel, I might point out that the board shall be staffed by an administrator and an agency secretary. This is the administrator shall be the St. Helens City Administrator, unless the administrator recommends and the agency concurs with another person serving as the administrator. So if there's similarly to the last discussion, there's somebody that comes on that is more appropriate and to fill that niche role of being the real agency, then that would be from my perspective, would be a preferred.
Is it
Well,
some-
the life of this is going to be 20 years.
Right.
Mhm.
That's a big changeover
Yeah.
with the council and with the
Sure.
with the board. It's just a changeover, and it just seems to me that accepting certain positions as the president of the council or as the mayor, you also have this responsibility, whatever, but it could only last a certain amount of time. And I've seen so many council members come and go from here. Not so much the mayor, but council presidents certainly
I'm in
have.
a good seat then, ain't I? I agree. I think it's 25 years.
Oh, that's a long time.
Our urban renewal is 25, or is it 30?
So the purpose of this bylaws is to kind of go beyond personalities, or present personalities, and to create a framework in
Yes.
which to operate.
Yes.
So
For
if things
future.
go well, it works, and if things don't go well, it can still work. Or we can work within the framework. And,
I like it.
and Jenny was real instrumental in collaging this effort together, so,
Thank you again.
and you see things that you point out, I appreciate it. So one of the things is the agency may rely on staffing from the city of St. Helens. So there's a scenario where we can bill staff time to the agency. So we're creating that in the bylaws.
Okay.
Not that, it has to be proportionality and things.
I certainly like that piece in terms of finance, in terms of finances, so we don't have duplications of roles and communication breaks down between a treasurer of the urban renewal and our finance director. I like that whole fact that it's all one, and it just seems it appears more seamless.
That is, the desired outcome is to make the urban renewable, or the city council, and be able to adjourn out of one meeting and start up and go into another, operate efficiently, and but still autonomously.
I'm jumping ahead, I'm just looking at special meetings and regular meetings and quorums and all that, everything looks legit to me, and the special meetings would be like in a case of meeting somebody, a business or something, that required,
That could be like a special appointment, or
Yeah.
a lot of times that's related around finance, where there's some deadline for a grant or bond or needs a signature.
yep,
Oh, I do have a question. It's committees, if we appoint committees to do research, and Kathy, you could probably help me out on this as well. Would those committee meetings, research committee meetings out of urban renewal, would they be, would they need to be advertised, and would they be a public meeting by chance?
If there are advisory committees?
Yes.
Are you talking about to the agency?
Yes.
I'd have to check into that. I know if they're advisory to the council, they are,
Uh-huh.
but as far as the agency itself, I don't know if there's different rules for that or
Okay.
not.
I would suspect so.
As far as transparency goes, that would be the best way to
Right,
do it.
exactly. Okay, thanks.
So is that, you jumped to Article 5 there?
Yeah.
Anyway, there's a manner of voting, there's the order of business, roll call, consent agenda. Tried to keep it pretty simple, public comment, discussion, action items, administrator report, and adjournment. That shouldn't be too controversial.
yep,
Um,
looks good.
Still do executive sessions. The financial element, as Counselor Morton noted, was pretty seamless with the city's finances, right down to the budget committee members would be the same
Right.
function, and as would be the auditor's requirement. And it does set up in the bylaws for professional services of the auditor.
Yep.
And an amendment process, so.
Good.
Staff would, minus the one issue there as far as a decision point, would like to take that, make that change, give it a good legal counsel review, and then bring it back to you for adoption.
Okay.
So, you have any comments, Jenny? or-
Yeah, just one. So, just to be clear, it's not adoption by city council. This will go before the agency. I mean, it's the same members, but we'll have an urban renewal agency scheduled for January 17th at 6 o'clock is the tentative time. So there's no other public hearings that day. So it'll just be in place of a public hearing.
What day is that?
Wednesday, it's a council
Thank you.
meeting. Yeah. Second meeting in January.
All right, I see.
Yeah.
Good work.
Thank you for getting this in place for us, we needed it.
Good work.
Okay, review proposed revision of library rules and conduct. Margaret?
In 2011, the library rules of conduct were drafted and approved by the council with the guidance of Cindy Phillips at the time when she was still at Jordan Ramus. And in that time, we have relied heavily on these to guide conduct in the building. But since that time, we have revised rules about smoking on the property. And the existing rules talked about having to be 10 feet away from an entrance. Whereas today, the posted rules on the building and the property say that there is no smoking, use of tobacco, or vaping on the property. So we needed the rules to be updated because we are constantly having to reinforce this with people who are smoking on the porch or on the grounds. And so I needed the force of the rules of conduct to be able to speak with those people about complying with that. The only other change that's in here that's of consequence is that we also need to add a section that says that if people come into the library with large purses and bags and backpacks, that they are directed to either put them in a locker or, if they're too large for a locker, to be retained at the front desk. And it's like showing up without a shirt or shoes. You have to go correct the situation before you can come back. So, I mean, if somebody said, I don't want to do that with my bag, they can leave and store it in their car or whatever and then come back. But the idea is that we don't have a security system, and so having large bags in the library has the potential for us to lose library materials.
Yep,
And so
I see Safeway do it, the school kids. The minute they come in, they're dropping their bags right at the door, so.
Okay, so those are the really, other than a couple of typos, those are the only corrections. And so I just wanted to get these brought up to date.
Everybody okay with that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Neil and Sue, is the library in the context of McCormick Park, is it surveyed as part of the park?
That's an ongoing question. The problem is we're open later than dusk, and a lot of things that happen in the park, they say after
Yeah.
they apply, once it becomes dark, whereas we're still open. And so that's always been the rub between their rules and ours. I have some gentlemen at the library that want to smoke, and they currently are going out to the perimeter of the library property to smoke, which is on the road that leads into
I see.
McCormick Park. There's nowhere for them to put their cigarette butts, but they are off the property at that point.
Okay.
And our rules make a distinction between the library, which is the portion of the Columbia Center that serves as the public library, the library building, and the library premises, and that's described to be all the grounds and the dock and courtyard and everything else. So these rules of conduct draw that perimeter around the library property.
We certainly don't want the smokers, no smoking, and I'm glad you said that about them going out to the road or to the area where they smoke. We certainly don't want to usher them out to the parks where there's no smoking.
Well, I understood the rules for the smoking in the parks were a little more complicated. Didn't they have to do with your proximity to children and that sort of thing?
Not any longer.
Not any longer.
Yes,
Yep.
it's no smoking.
That's
Okay.
Tobacco in the
that's just
park.
why I kind of asked that question. So
So then there is a problem then with them being at that stop sign?
You would probably, if you're gonna recommend them to go somewhere, recommend them to go out on the street and sidewalk.
Okay. Okay.
So, Doug, to answer your question, the Columbia Center, the library building is on the same tax lot, but there isn't a distinct boundary that says, here's the library and here's the park. It's all on one tax lot, legal tax lot. So.
Oh, there was one other thing. I struck a statement that says that if someone is present while intoxicated by alcohol or controlled substances, that we reserve the right to summon a police officer. And it went on to say who will either take the impaired person home or to a treatment facility. I struck that. I don't think it's the role of library rules of conduct to say what the police
Sure.
will do with an
Yep.
impaired person. So that came off as well.
But they still will be removed, right?
Yes.
Okay,
But what happens after that is
Yes.
not for us to say.
yep. Anything else, Margaret?
Nope, that's it.
Okay. Department reports. Terry?
You have on your agenda tonight a
surplus property order. We've gone through another round of evidence, property room cleanup, and stuff's been posted and hasn't been claimed, so we want to declare it surplus so we can get rid of it. And there's quite a list, and it's on your agenda for tonight. Also on your agenda tonight is the recognition of a third grade student from McBride Elementary. To give you the background, a few weeks ago I challenged the third grade students in the school district, to create the police department's holiday or Christmas card. And we had 90 students from the third grade classes at McBride and Wilson Clark create some artwork for us. And we narrowed it down and picked the winner. And Hovland Kennedy is her name, and she'll be here tonight with her family, and we want to publicly acknowledge her work and recognize her. And then thanks to Margaret, she, when she heard about the project, offered on behalf, I think, of the Arts and Cultural Commission, she can correct me if I'm wrong, but to display all of the artwork at the library. So all of it is now on display at the library, and I saw it the other day when we went over for some photos. It looks great. Thank you, Margaret, for doing that. So anyway, we're going to do that tonight at 7. And then at 7 tonight, you may have heard already that we made a job offer to Santa Claus, and he'll be here tonight for his official swearing in, and we will start his official duties as representative of the department. And he has a long list already of expectations or duties, notably starting Friday with a party at McBride School that we're going to do. Friday afternoon, he's going to do a crosswalk detail with the students at Lewis and Clark, and then, of course, help us on Saturday for Donut Day. And you will hear about him and his efforts throughout the whole month of December, but more on that tonight.
So would his reindeer be sworn in as well?
No, he's transitioning from the four-legged transport to four wheels.
Okay.
And you'll see him around in a police car. So.
All right.
Anyway, more on that tonight. I'll save some of that. So that's all I have.
Thanks, Terry. Sue?
Just that you may notice, or in the next few weeks, there's some surveying activity going on Gable Road, and that's the beginning of the Gable Road Improvement Project. So step 1 underway, more to come.
Nice.
That's about all I have.
Neil?
The only thing I was going to comment on is that, just so you guys know, we did upgrade the breaker box for the docks.
Yay.
And we hope it's going to work. So having the Christmas ship here this weekend will probably...
We'll know, huh? Be a good test?
A good test, hopefully. So.
Thanks, Neil. Margaret?
It was the Columbia Arts Guild that assisted with hanging the student art. The Columbia Arts Guild is a 501c3, and they meet once a week at the library, either to do their art together or to collaborate or to use that as a jumping off point to go somewhere else to paint around the city or into Portland to a gallery. And so they've become a nice partner with the library because we provide them space to do their activities, and in the summer they can often be seen on the porch of the library painting. So they were really excited to showcase the student work, so the thanks go to them. And that's all I have.
Thanks, Margaret. Matt? Really, Matt? Nothing? Matt will be performing at
Running Dogs Brewery.
Running Dogs Brewery on the 14th of this month from 6 to, was it 6? Or was it 4 to 6? All night long. 6 to 8.
Perfect.
Kathy?
When is that again? What date?
The 14th.
We'll be there.
Yesterday I emailed you guys a letter of support for the CDBG grant application for City of Astoria. Did anybody have any questions or concerns about it? So I'll have you sign that tonight.
Okay.
The petition for the Yes Keep St. Helens Groceries tax-free, they submitted their signatures. The county certified that they had an adequate number of signatures, so I took over the ballot measure form today, and so that will be on the ballot in May.
Okay.
And we are, staff's talking about doing another cleanup of files and storage, and so I don't have any dates set yet, but if it's okay with the council, it's going to be a day where either it could be anywhere from a half a day to a day and a half, maybe, where we would close the offices that are where we need the staff to help with the cleanup. Excuse me.
Is there gonna be a
So-
shredder?
Shredding service, and so we'll probably do what we did last time, which is pile up a bunch of stuff, boxes of stuff, and have them come on a special day to do that.
I have boxes of city stuff. Can I bring it?
Of city stuff?
Of just this kind of thing.
If it's confidential anyways. If
Yeah.
it's not, then it can just go in the recycling.
I'll sort through. Yeah.
Okay. The other thing too is I've received a report that the microphones sound good
Good.
on Granicus. However, when Doug and Marshall lean back, it doesn't pick up as well. So I encourage you to sit forward, or so the mic is.
There.
close.
There goes our beauty rest
Yeah,
now.
We're kicking back.
The door.
And that's all I had.
Okay. John?
So Saturday's tree lighting. I think everything's pretty well in place for that. The plaza looks amazing, better than ever, and I look forward to that.
Nice weather.
Should be nice weather.
Nice weather.
Cold.
Might be a little cold. I'm never. So we're going to be using the plaza and the stage area and the boats, or the docks right down there. I don't know, Tina might fill on any details we have there, but this year's Monday, Mayor Scholl and I were at the Oregon Leadership Summit, which talks about the Oregon Business Plan, which is the looking ahead to the Oregon's future. And there's a lot of really, it was the 15th time they've done this, and I thought it was a fabulous itinerary there. That some of the things they talked about as far as the forecasting what the technology coming into the future and how different it's going to be and how it's going to change our lives even more than it ever has. And personally, making yourself robot-proof is kind of one of the themes, and I thought about that a little bit, thinking about how would you make your community robot-proof. And not to say that a robot's a negative thing, because it's really, it's probably not, and some of the futurist type things that they were throwing out there for concepts were pretty
Wild.
pretty impressive.
Yeah, they were pretty wild.
And, so enjoyed that. So I guess the other point of business that didn't make this is the tourism effort throughout the year. We did a contract with E2C that went through the end of the year. That contract terminates, and if there's no talking with them, just rolling it over. I think we don't want to go. The alternative would go out for RFP, and I don't think that would be a good use of our time. But so in the next packet, the council directs, I would put that in there for acceptance. We had some changes to programming and things. So we've done a little bit more than the contract said, but it seems to all work out. Or she's done a little more than the contract says. Quite a bit more, actually, but I think we're mutually satisfied, at least from my perspective. As complicated and messy as it's going to be doing events, so. But it's worth it. So. That's it.
Okay. Councilor Khan.
Down the road, I may have some comments on that, but not right this minute. Didn't realize that was coming up. Okay, the next CIT training is coming up January 8th through 12th. So I'm again asking you for snack money.
I'm okay with that.
for this training.
You okay with snack money, Doug?
Totally.
Okay.
Okay.
You got that, Matt? Okay.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the Oregon Leadership Summit too, and talked about the future. The future's always tentative, but they're talking about within the next 10 years, which is imminent, not just tentative. I'm a science fiction fan, and I grew up on Isaac Asimov, and to me, the idea of robotics and automation is an exciting subject, talking about transitioning our current workforce over and seeing the jobs change and seeing the requirements change and seeing education have to change also. It's a lot. It's a lot to take in, but rather than being frightened by it, I'm excited by it. I think we're going to see some really interesting times ahead. And thanks for letting me go to the conference. I think that I learned a lot, and it'll help prepare me for the future. That's it.
Thank you. Council President Morton.
Well, first of all, I want to thank Kathy for getting our these evaluation formats out to all of us. If you open these things up, you'll see Department Head Evaluations 2017. By charter, these need to be accomplished.
I'm working on it. I am.
I heard about it all year.
Because
Okay.
I was late last week.
Well, you got half of it done, right?
No, I got it all done. Just late.
It's finished now?
Yeah, it's been finished. Oh,
I checked and
I did Margaret's. Did we not give you a copy back? Okay.
Ooh, I'm glad I said something because that needs to get
Would you make a
into the
copy,
file.
please?
Sure.
Thank
My
you. You
charter
have a
is
copy.
got it. Yep.
I think I've got a copy. I may have a copy on my phone.
We're okay. It was just a reminder.
did it. Did not know you did not know.
And there's still one council that needs to do both of them.
Yes.
So one council member, and we don't want to be neglectful over a year in doing that. It's our accountability factor, and as we all know, we ask our citizens to come up here and name for the record for Kathy, and it's one of the things that we can do, that we need to do by charter, is be accountable and put it in writing, what our evaluations and what our thoughts are as we oversee our departments that we've been assigned to. So just a reminder, and these are for 2017 by December 29th. We need these finished. I set in with department heads with John very briefly, and extensively with Public Works and Parks yesterday for well over an hour. That's a long time to have me in your office. I know, exactly. Lots of yawns. With Parks in mind, Jen and Andrew Nemi and a delegate from the veterans, Jean's last name, thank you. We met at McCormick Park and pretty much worked out all the fine details of the Veterans Plaza plan. As you know, we've got $90,000 pledged to that, nearly $50,000 from the city, and $40,000 and more from the veterans. And then, of course, there's Andrew Nemi from Lower Columbia Engineering, who's doing all the in-kind work. He's doing not only the budget, but the planning. He's just taking the ball and going with it. And so that's exciting. And hopefully we will, the date for that, to have that ready, is for our Veterans Day celebration next November. So hopefully over the summer, you'll see a plaza in that area where the Veterans Memorial Park is now. And we'll come up with we'll come up with a name. I certainly want St. Helens on it because others are. It's more than that's where it's located. It's located in the city of St. Helens. It's a plaza, and it's for the veterans. So hopefully those words are in the formal name of the area or the project. For now that's all I have.
All right, thanks, Doug.
I'll run that by the Parks Commission and get they're okay on it, their blessing, and they'll give a recommendation back to the council.
Okay, appreciate it, Doug. All right, well, Dan and I was at the leadership summit with these two, and boy, it was very eye-opening. I think one of the numbers that was thrown out at us was in 2030, or it was either 2030 or 2035, which doesn't matter, but that projected job loss due to technology in today's standards will be 23% of the jobs will be gone. That's not very far away. Hopefully, like farming, they will be replaced with something new, but they're really concerned about the gap in between that and 2055, which is like 55 or 53% of the jobs will be gone that were manned by technology. They're really concerned about that gap, that it happens so fast that they don't have people trained in new areas. Tell my kids this, and they're like, they're just still high school and they know it all. Why does this matter to me? I'm like, hey, this is the leadership summit that, we're hearing this at. You can't read this in any school book right now. And it was autonomous rigs, trucks going down the road with no man driving it, cars, very futuristic, flying cars, George Jetson stuff. So, and it is kind of something that we need to, I would agree with John that we need to prepare for in the future of what businesses come in and don't come in. Is it one of those jobs that are going to be gone in 20 years? We really got to think about that. That was very insightful. Having Chuck here today was kind of eye-opener, just, with Armstrong, that we're going to try to do everything that we can and possible to try to keep them here first and foremost, but at least be talking to them and hopefully continue to talk to them. So just so the citizens know that we as a county and an administration, council as a whole, understand that severity and we empathize with those people who are currently working there. So yeah, that's all I got. And I do not have a sheet for executive session, but I will try to do this. Would somebody like to, should we take a break or should we so move first? Okay, would somebody like to make a motion to move into executive session? ORS 192.660 2DE labor negotiations and E real property transactions.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Motion's been made and seconded to move into executive session ORS 192.660 2D and E. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break and resume here in a minute.